Rogue One on Blu-ray, DVD, whatever you want to buy. And I think it's been enough time now since Rogue One's been released back in December, it might be a little too late to give out a review, but I thought I would give my criticism on what I thought about the movie, which was, to my surprise, vastly different from what everyone else thought. Because when it came down to it, the Rogue One on Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, all that sort of rating, I see it got high praises. So like IMDb says it got 8. I think on Rotten Tomatoes it got over 70%. One of the highest movies, rated high movies of that month alone. And no one should be shocked, at least, of course. But I'm not a diehard Star Wars fan. I watched the movies. I love the movies, even the prequels, believe it or not. I know it might be hard for some people to be saying, "Oh, how can you be a Star Wars fan if you don't love the prequels?" Well, maybe that might be a discussion for another time. But I personally believe there is a lot that prequels offer that some people just overlook because it's the hype that they like. Oh my god, prequel's terrible. Don't even bother with it. Well, like I said, another discussion for another time. But today, I am here to talk about Rogue One and why I thought Rogue One was actually one of the worst Star Wars movie. And for some reason, because of Rogue One exists, I now have a higher respect for Episode 7, which I also thought wasn't that good at all to begin with either. So please join me, take a couple minutes, and let's get into the discussion, shall we? Now, there's a lot of characters that I have to go through to explain why the characters simply did not work in this movie. So I'll keep it as brief as possible and short as possible without going over so long. Because if I do, I am going to go well over 20 minutes. But I'm going to try to keep it down as short as possible. Since what I'm about to say, a lot of the critics, even though they gave really high reviews for the movie, they had the major complaint that these characters itself are bland, lifeless, and you just don't care about them. And that is one of the main characters problems of this movie. This is essentially a movie that explains why this Death Star has the one weakness that, if you see episode 4, you're like, how could this weakness exist? You explain that in the movie. That's great. And it's pretty much just a heist. And in a heist movie like Ocean's 11, what do you have to care about? You have to care about the characters. If the characters don't work, then what's the point of the movie besides just explaining to us that this happened? And so let me just go down the list. Okay, Jyn Erso. She's there. What relationship does she have with anybody besides her father's there? Okay. Let's see, what's the character? Saul Guerrera. Okay, he's there with her. He trained her. You don't get any of that. You see her kick ass a couple times. That's great, but other than that, her performance is lifeless. She doesn't really do anything. The only contribution she has to the story is that she's the daughter of the guy who made the Death Star. That's great. Diego Luna. One of the better characters, especially that one scene you see where he shoots the informant. That's great. People are like, oh my god, this shows the rebels are bad too. But yeah, he did it one time, and that's all you ever see. Like, and they talk about it, and he's like, you don't know what I've done. You can't judge me. Like, I've done terrible things. I've been in the rebellion since I was 6 years old. Like, that's great. Like, I'm glad you say that, and you do have some character, and he's probably the most charismatic out of the whole group. But still, like, his character alone, I don't think could have saved the movie. It was good, but whatever. Now, the duo of Donnie Yen and Wen Jiang, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. You see, and here's another problem that I have with the movie. You see, I'm listing all these characters. The only one I can think of is Jin Erso, but the Diego Luna, Donnie Yen, and Wen Jiang. Sorry. I'm saying their real names. I am not saying any of their characters' names because I don't know it. I can't remember their names, and it's not like their names are complicated. It's not. I mean, in a Star Wars movie, when there's hundreds of complicated names, I can't remember their names, and I don't care to remember their names. I just know Jin Erso because I've seen it in the trailers and I've seen it in the movies. I know at least the main character. I've seen it 100 times plastered all over the place, so I know Jin Erso. And as an Asian myself, I was looking forward to Donnie Yen because, like, oh my god, Donnie Yen's in a movie and Asian is finally in Star Wars. Yeah! And what better actor to get than Donnie Yen? You know, and of course, you know, if you've seen the Ip Man movies 1, 2, and 3, you know he's gonna bring the shit. And he's gonna be, and you know, like, he has a staff. You know, posters like, oh my god, he's gonna be that staff has to be a lightsaber. Oh my god, I can't wait. But then you find out, like, oh, there's no Jedis in this movie. There's none. It's fine. There's none. And you're like, okay, no Jedis. That's cool. Alright. He's blind. Okay. Let's see what he can do. Then you see the trailers and you're like, oh my god. Oh my god. You see him kick those stormtroopers' ass? He's not a Jedi, but he has to be something. He has to have the Force with him. And then they tell you, like, no, he's just a blind guy that can hear really well and he can kung fu fight like there's no tomorrow. I'm like, that's Donnie Yen. Okay. But whatever. But then there's his character, his friend with the giant gun. That is either sometimes a machine gun or a shotgun. I don't understand because he carries a giant backpack, but that's not his character. My main problem with the character is, like, why was he with them? Why was he with Donnie Yen? Like, I understand, like, they both work together as temple guards and whatnot, but, like, that's his coworker. Like, I can't remember, like, I've seen the movie a couple times now, like, I can't remember if they said, like, oh yeah, he's my best friend. I saved his life at one point, and that's how I became blind. That would be a good reason why he follows him around all the time, and that would be a good reason why he would try to save his life all the time. But no, you don't get any of that. You're just like, oh, I love, like, he's there, and I protect him, I'm his guardian. Why? We don't know. Are we supposed to accept that? Apparently we're supposed to. Not the movie doesn't have to explain everything, but we still want to see why he's willing to risk his life for this guy, or when Donnie Yen eventually dies, why should he care? Yeah, they had, you know, an employment relationship, but, like, if my coworker dies on my arms and I don't really care besides working with him, I'll just be like, ah, crap, he's dead. Am I gonna have to pick up his shift later? Okay. Or if, like, oh man, my job closed down. Well, good luck finding your next job. And that's it. Why do I care protecting this guy? Like, do they have, like, a gay relationship? And if they do, there's no chemistry behind it. There's no romance. It must be one-sided because I don't think Donnie Yen's reciprocating it at all. Yeah, that's weird. But anyways, those two characters completely wasted. Completely wasted. The pilot, don't care. He's just a pilot. Why did he defect? I don't know. Maybe he saw the Death Star, got scared, and wanted to tell everybody, oh my god, the Death Star, that's awful. Like, you know, before he dies, he's like, oh, Jyn Erso's dad, this is for you. Why? Why do you care? He didn't save your life. If anything, he made your life worse. Because of him, you got raped by this tentacle monster. You went through so much crap with Saw Gerrera. You died. You're constantly risking your life. Your life has not improved at all, man. You should have stayed in the Imperial pilot because you would have been alive. You would have a job. You would have safety. Hey, man, maybe you would be working with some dude that will become your protector one day. You never know. It's the Empire. Hell, you might work with Darth Vader. That's pretty awesome right there. Yeah, he's the pilot. That's great. Like, he's completely wasted. I didn't like the character. He's just there. Why is he there? I don't know. Because they need a pilot. Because... No, they don't even need a pilot. Because Diego Luna can fly already. He can already fly the U-Wing. Why do they need a pilot for? Why do they even need him? Why? Seriously, why do you need him? And of course, I'm leaving out people's favorite character in the movie, K2SO, played by one of my favorite actors, Alan Tudyk. And my one problem with him, yeah, I get it, he's funny. He brings lightheartedness, he brings the jokes in this movie. But that just reminds me too much of the Marvel feeling. And I'm not saying the Marvel movies are bad, but they have a little problem where they just likes to bring out jokes every single intense moment. Like, we have this intense moment or the intense movie where it should be kept serious. Not too serious where people can't joke around, but serious enough where jokes shouldn't be fired every 5 minutes. It takes you out of it. At least it took me out. Every time like I had like a chuckle or a laugh, I'm like, okay, we're in a serious situation. Why are we still laughing? Like, you should be serious. And like, he's there. He's like a upgraded C-3PO. He's not as annoying as C-3PO, thank God. But like, was he in there just for the humor? Because if he was, then they should have just gotten him playing as a chicken from Moana, because he did the exact same thing in Moana, except all he did was scream like a chicken and act stupid. And I thought he was the better character. I actually was cared about the chicken in Moana. In the end, when Maui was like, "Oh, the chicken lives," I'm like, "The chicken lives! That's awesome! The chicken lives!" This one, K2SO, yeah, you care about him because he made you laugh, but that's about it. That's the only reason why you like him, because he made you laugh. That might work when you're trying to get a girlfriend or whatnot, but in a movie, you have to do a little bit more than that, man. Like, I'm sorry, I'm happy with my relationship. I don't need you spouting jokes in such a serious situation. It really takes me out of things. And yeah, those are the characters. Oh, I forgot to mention. Another thing this movie that really does bad up on, especially with the characters wise. This movie, being the big budget that it is, wastes a lot of great actors. I mean, even like the main ones I just bitched about, like Donnie Yen, who is just a legend in itself right now, not just in the Eastern films, but in West right now, especially thanks to Netflix and all the movies that he's done with Flashpoint and all that. He's a great dude. We all love him. You love him. I love him. My girlfriend loved him. She watched this movie. I could only bring her to the theaters because Donnie Yen was in it. He was my ticket to bring the Asian eyes. And I'm pretty sure that's why they put him in the movie too, for the Asian market. Because we definitely need that in Hollywood. He was in it. Felicity Jones. I haven't seen her in much things, but from what I've seen, she is a good actress. Another actor I'm not too familiar with, but from what I've seen in the movie, I know he can do good things. He's just not directed with the script to do much. And in my opinion, the worst part about this whole casting is the cast of Mads Mikkelsen as Jyn Erso's father. And if you know Mads Mikkelsen, if you see him in Hannibal, especially Casino Royale, where he got his big break, and everything else he's in, especially in, I've seen him in King Arthur. That's where I first saw Mads Mikkelsen, and he was awesome in King Arthur. In this movie, he's wasted. You get this guy who can do so much things. He could be the villain. He should have played director credit. He would have been more fierce. And he does two things. He shows up in the beginning, tells his daughter he loves her, gets his wife killed, whatnot, whatever. And he shows up again, and he dies. Great. Good job. Such an easy paycheck for a great actor. For all these people, like, why? Why would you cast such a great actor to play such a minimal role? There was no scenes that he needed where he needs to show such gravitas of an acting range. Nothing in his character made him do that. What would have helped if they replaced the guy who played Director Krennic, who I've seen in one other movie, which was Dark Knight Rises, where he plays the exact same character, just scummy little worm, and where he's trying to take over Wayne Enterprise. He's just trying to regain control over the Death Star. Big whoopity doo. I get it. You want power. That's what the Empire officers. Everyone in the Empire is incompetent, except for Darth Vader, because they're all scummy little worms. They just stormtroopers can't shoot. The officers are power hungry, and Darth Vader's badass and scary, and the Emperor's a lunatic. Whatever. Everyone in the Empire is like, how do these rebels do not just win outright? I don't know. But he did nothing in the movie that made him warrant as a good villain. It was terrible. It was god awful. The one thing he did was kill Jyn Erso's mother, and that's it. Like, why, if he's a commander of a base, why was he personally hunting Jyn Erso? And then why didn't he just like, okay, you guys go, like, we're in a full base armed with like hundreds and thousands of stormtroopers and like AT walkers, and we can't kill 10 dudes. I'm gonna personally go down there and kill them myself. Not you lieutenants, not you sergeants. None of you are the stormtroopers. Oh no, not even my death troopers that are constantly behind me whispering nonsense. I can't send them. You guys do your own thing. And he dies like a bitch. By his own weapon. Like a bitch. And I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about the villain. I don't care about the characters. I just don't care. Now, another selling point in the... I'm not making this movie to like bash critics on what they thought was great about the movie that I just disagree on. But another aspect I would like to bring up is just the story itself. We get it. This is not supposed to be a number Star Wars movie. This is supposed to be a Star Wars side story. That's why it's called Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And they try to do something ballsy with this when they try to make a war movie, which I thought great. But in spirit of Frozen, where people saw this movie and like, oh my god, have you seen... Back then when they're like, have you seen Frozen? Disney is back. I think this is better than Lion King. I kid you not. The Frozen hype is gone now, but I can talk about this now without being crucified. But back then, when Frozen came out, people thought it was the second coming of Disney, where they thought, let's compare this movie to the best Disney movie ever. Let's compare it to the Lion King. And I think I've met some people who thought Frozen was better than Lion King, and I was just mind blown. How could Lion King be dethroned by Frozen? It feels like Lion King versus Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, or whatever. I'm like, I can see that. It's a close contender, but Frozen? Get out of here, my god. And when this movie came out, when people were like, Rogue One, it's about compared to Saving Private Ryan. That beach scene is comparable to the beach scene in Saving Private Ryan. And I thought, no, it's not. No. Not at all. I was waiting. I saw the movie and I was like, oh my god, here it comes. I just sat through 2 hours of garbage. Uninteresting garbage. I saw Darth Vader for about a minute. Whatever. And finally here comes the last battle. At this point, I just want something. I want something. And like the fact that these guys are gonna die or whatever, I don't care. I just hope something happens that's interesting and epic. And it comes to beach scene, and we saw all the making of and all the trailers, and they've been hyping this movie about this giant battle that's about to happen in the beach, and it was boring. I'm sorry, it was boring. It sucked. It was the one payoff you could have given me and the audience. It sucked. I know people love this scene, and I know people like, oh, the space battle up in the sky, that was amazing. I'm sorry, it was boring. I couldn't care about anybody. Like, people were like, oh, the space battle is comparable to Return of the Jedi. No, it's not. No, it's not. The Return of the Jedi space battle, the Death Star space battle, the Episode 3 space battle, yes, I said it, is so much better. It is so much better. At least in the episode Return of the Jedi space battle, you had Lando Calrissian up there. He was awesome. He had the pancake face monster with him as a co-pilot, and he had Wedge Antilles with him, and they were like going all around and like going through all the starships, and like the entire time the Death Star is shooting at the mega Admiral Akbar space cruiser and whatnot. You're like, oh my god, everything is intense, everything's going crazy, and this is an old movie like back in the 80s or 70s or whatever, and shit is going insane, and you're like, oh my god, they're down on the planet, these stormtroopers are fighting Ewoks, little teddy bears, and it was an intense scene, and you're like, oh my god, like they better destroy the shield reactor or everyone up there is gonna die. And you know that they're not gonna die, but still, it was intense, it was epic. This one, I saw what they were trying to do. Like, they didn't want to be like, oh, busy, they just want to try to keep it as personal as possible. But I couldn't care. At this point, the damage was done. I saw the X-Wings, they're cool. Yeah, it had a few good moments. I thought it had a few good moments. I couldn't deny it when they just tackled the Star Destroyer and made the Star Destroyer like bump the Star Destroyer and hit this giant shield reactor. Yeah, that was cool. I didn't even think about that. I thought when you were just gonna slam it, I don't know how it just didn't go through or just destroy the ship itself, but whatever. I'm not gonna question it. I thought that was pretty awesome. I gotta admit that. So some part of the spaceships I liked, but the beach battle, I didn't care. I couldn't care at all. The whole fight scene, I was just like, get to the point. Get to the point. Lyndon and did the thing where one character just started dying one by one, and I'm like, okay, alright, they're dying finally, about time. And all of it comes to an end where it shows one good scene in the entire movie, and you know what I'm talking about. This movie has one good scene, and one good scene only, and it is the attack with Darth Vader. And I can't help it, I love that scene. It is one of the best scenes I've ever seen, because I've read the books. You know, you hear about Darth Vader, and especially if you only see the movies alone, you're like, why is Darth Vader so badass? Why do people like him so much? He can't even fight an old man in episode 4. And it's hard to show people episode 4 now. It's just, if you see Rogue One and you see episode 4, you're like, Darth Vader, he's so awesome. And then you never see him do anything like that again. And you see episode 4 where he fights Obi-Wan Kenobi, who you see as like a 70-year-old man or whatnot, and he fights him just like rigidly. And it's like, what happened to the badass dude? I could just like throw people up in the building and just like slice them. But whatever, that's besides the point. Darth Vader scene was awesome. They all die. New Hope gets set up. And the movie ends. Awful. Everything was rushed. And everything was rushed. I don't mind the fact that you have to go through planet to planet to planet to planet. That's fine. Things happen all over the place. That's fine. That's part of the Star Wars universe. It's a galaxy far, far away. But everything was just so rushed. You never get built up to any of the character relationships. And I personally believe the responsibility for the blame doesn't really go over to Gareth Edwards. It goes over to Disney themselves. And now let's talk about the one thing. Now the Blu-ray is coming out, what people really want to hear from the director and the man himself, the reshoots. Now, if you are following the movie all the way from October to the movie when it finally came out, you would know that this movie has been plagued by reshoots, and that was like the first time, like, oh my god, this movie is gonna be terrible. Everyone was worried, like, oh my god, because Suicide Squad had reshoots, and that movie was god awful. What if this happened to Star Wars 2? And I was scared. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared too. But I kept seeing all the trailers, and I was like, oh my god, the trailers were so awesome. The trailers were so awesome. I would work out, I would be benching, and I would be listening to the trailers like, yes, Rogue One. I can't wait to see you. My god. And I would just do. I wouldn't care. Like, reshoots. I trust you, Disney. I trust you, Star Wars. Episode 7 was bad, but I love you, reshoots. I'm sure you would do the movie justice and fine. And what did we get? All we got was a movie that was plagued with, what's the word? With the things that only fans can recognize. I forgot what the word is. Yeah. So many things where it's like, oh my god, hey, did you see that? Oh my god, have you seen that? Fan references. Like, oh my god, have you seen that? Have you seen that? Have you seen that? Where me, I get it. I see them all. I'm like, oh my god, I see them all everywhere. But they're not subtle. They're like directly shoved right in your face. Like, hey, do you see that? Hey, do you see that? Do you see that? Do you see that? It's from the other Star Wars movies. Have you seen that? And I thought that was really distracting. And that only serves to help us because we're fans. We love Star Wars. But my girlfriend who saw it, who don't know anything about Star Wars, she's like, she just see those scenes and like, okay, well, I don't get it. So who are those two dudes that they bumped into? What do they have? What do they just leave a frame on them? And I just show her, like, you gotta see episode 4. And she's like, well, I kind of don't want to because Rogue One sucked. I'm like, fuck. But the reshoots, and you know, by now, like, people, if you read the interviews by Gareth Edwards, you find out that if the reshoots didn't happen, you wouldn't have had the Darth Vader scene, and that is a terrible loss in itself. But I really want to know what the original vision for the Rogue One was. What did Gareth Edwards have? Because even if you see all the trailers and all the making of footage, you see there is a different movie out there. Instead of transmitting the codes like Jyn Erso did up there, you see her running through the beach with Diego Luna, just running with everybody, like, oh my god, the plan's in her hands, like, I gotta go transmit it. Who knows? And like, you hear about, like, oh, like, they actually did survive and they escaped in a spaceship to transmit the plan, but then Darth Vader is right on their heels, and you think maybe like, oh my god, Darth Vader kills all of them. And that's what I originally thought in the movie. I thought in the movie they were like, oh my god, we did it, we saved all the plans, we're gonna win, we're gonna get the Death Star, and what the hell is that? Darth Vader just rah! I thought that was gonna happen. Didn't happen the way I wanted to, but that's fine. But then you read about all these reshoots that happened, and you're like, was that actually supposed to happen? Like, did I actually guess the movie correctly? And I don't know. We don't know. And that's what people want to know the most about the movie. It's like, hey, people are like, hey, but the movie was fine, but what happened in the reshoots? What would have made the movie differently? That's what I want to know the most. Like, if I had to sacrifice a Darth Vader scene for a better movie, I would get the better movie any day. I love Star Wars. Like I said, I'm not a diehard fan, but I read some of the books. I love it. I know all 7 forms of Jedi lightsaber combat by heart, man. I love Star Wars, and I just want a better movie. And I hope Gareth Edwards one day comes out and tells us what the reshoots were, what the original plan for the movie were, but I'm pretty sure it's never gonna happen because Disney keeps their grumpy little hands on themselves. Because I love Gareth Edwards, man. Like, I think he's a good dude. Granted, yeah, people don't like him as much, but he made Godzilla, man. He made Godzilla 2014, I believe, and that movie was awesome. I don't care if you're like, that movie only had 10 minutes of Godzilla. Godzilla had 10 minutes. He's in the movie, he's in the title. I'm like, I don't care. I was in the theater with my best friend right next to me, and a theater full of Godzilla fans, and those 10 minutes Godzilla was on the screen, it was glorious. One of the best Godzilla movies and experiences I've had of all time. It was awesome. Gareth Edwards, you have potential, and I know Disney screwed you over royally. Now please just tell us what the original movie was supposed to be, and I will love you again. But until then, you have something to prove for yourself, because I've seen the making of, and you're like, oh my god, to make Star Wars has been my dream come true. Has it been really? Or do you regret this project? Or was the blue milk really that worth it? Again, another fan reference. If you don't know Star Wars, you just don't get it. You're like, what's that blue drink? Why are they leaving it on the screen like that? Go watch Star Wars movies. All it comes down to really is this, in my opinion, the worst Star Wars movie? And honestly, I would put this movie on par with Episode 2. Episode 2, in my opinion, is the worst out of the whole entire trilogy. Cause, actually, no, Episode 7 goes, nah man, it's tied with Episode 7, I'm sorry. You might think like, dude, how can you say Episode 2 is better than Rogue One? I'm sorry, like, you know how Jurassic World, people were like, it's a terrible movie, but like last 20 minutes, especially with the T-Rex versus Dominus, that was awesome. Well, you know what? Episode 2 had a gladiatorial arena scene with over 200 Jedis against droids. That scene was way better than any T-Rex versus Indominus. You saw Samuel L. Jackson with his purple lightsaber just kill Jango Fett's, cut his friggin' head off. That was awesome. And then right after that, that wasn't even it. Right after that, you had the Clone Wars. And you saw all the clone troopers like, oh my god, these evolve into stormtroopers? These are impossible. How do they downgrade so much? These guys have big ass rifles. They're just shooting them in a sandstorm. It was awesome. Then before that, you saw Obi-Wan becoming a detective, trying to find out who the Mandalorian bounty hunter is, and just discovering the clone troopers themselves. That was awesome. Granted, you had to put up with a lot of BS where Anakin's complaining about sand and whatnot. We all know the story. We all heard it all. Oh, I don't like sand. It's coarse and it's rough and it gets everywhere. Great. Just skip the scene. Obi-Wan scene comes on always afterwards. Awesome. Every scene with Ian McGregor was awesome. Rogue One, couldn't care. I had to skip every single scene to get to the last battle in Scarab. Every single scene. I couldn't care. None of the scenes were consequential at all. Episode 2, I would at least see all the grand Obi-Wan scene. And then the last battle. And that's awesome. Episode 7, I rank it as above this movie simply because I can name all 3 main characters. Well, 4, including the villain of Episode 7. Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo Ren, Snoke, Brandon Gleeson. I can name all of them, and all those characters were infinitely more interesting than the whole cast we had in Rogue One. And I thought Episode 7 was a terrible movie because it was exactly Episode 4, but I can forgive it now because I saw Rogue One and I saw how much bad Star Wars can be, and it makes me worried for Episode 8, 9, or whatever Star Wars movie that comes. But Rogue One is terrible. Terrible, man. And when I say terrible, it's not really a bad movie per se, because, you know, the production values were great. It was a pretty looking movie. It's a pretty good looking movie. Well made movie, but the acting and everything, it was terrible. Just terrible. But the worst cardinal sin for me is personal preference, the worst thing about this movie was the fact that this movie had no recognizable score. Every Star Wars movie, with the exception of Episode 7, some people might say Episode 7, with the exception of Episode 7, had a recognizable theme in every single movie. Episode 1, Duel of Fates. Episode 2, Across the Stars. Episode 3, Battle of the Heroes. Episode 4, every single thing in Episode 4. Episode 5, the Empire theme. Yoda. Episode 6. They all had recognizable themes. I would pick up these soundtracks in a heartbeat. When Episode 7 came out, I was like, John Williams did it. And I was so glad John Williams came. But I could not care about anything. Any of the score in Episode 7. Worse, Rogue One came out. I did not care about it. Any or heard barely any of the score in Rogue One. My God. You had such... Those scenes in the battle could have been made so much better if they had an epic score, an orchestral score behind it, just making it more and more intense. But no. No. Not at all. Not at all. And the thing is, the composer, Mike Noche, I forgot his name. I know he's composed Star Trek movies and something else. He's a good composer. I like him. I think he's done pretty good work in this movie. Awful. Awful. My God. Awful. Nothing memorable. Nothing good. Awful. Awful, man. Now, after seeing this very unorganized video, you might be thinking, what's the point of making this video? Because obviously, no one's gonna watch this video enough to make the decision. I'm not gonna buy the Blu-ray or whatnot. It's not gonna happen. But I want to get my opinion out there. That Rogue One sucks dick. I hate it. And my girlfriend hates it. And I can't show her any more Star Wars anymore. I tried, but because of Rogue One, you ruined it for me. Thank you, Star Wars. And I can't say that because I love Star Wars. I love it. I love it. I will watch Episode 8. But now I have to keep a close eye on it. Which sucks. And honestly, I hope this doesn't go to the point where I watch these movies and now I think, wow, Star Wars is terrible. Like, sure, like I like the prequels. They're not the perfect movies, but I like them. And now these new prequels are gonna come out, and now I think, well, now we're doing a reverse, where people hate the old prequels, but I like them, and people like the new trilogy, and I hate them. And I know I'm not alone in this, but I thought I'd give my 2 cents on this. And yeah, that's it. I would have way more to say. I know this video is really choppy, but I'm sorry. I was trying to not make this as long as possible. I think I'm already reaching like 20-minute mark. Sorry, but I'll try to make things more concise and neat as possible. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you have kept with me this far, thank you, and expect more videos and more reviews. I think I'm doing a Justice League trailer and Death Note trailer review. So I'll see you next time. Bye. And like and subscribe and all that stuff. Thank you.